Hello and welcome to another YouTube tutorial. My name is Radhi and you're watching my channel Radhi the Brand. As of last week I started coding a new pet project which is using a lot of MySQL and PHP. So this tutorial is kind of inspired from my pet project which I will share in the next few weeks on my channel. So if you're new here, make sure you subscribe by hitting the red button below, and let me now explain what we will be doing in this project. So in this project we will be creating an array with a few categories of comedy, adventure, drama, crime, adult and horror, and we want to make sure that one of the categories is selected. And for this part of the tutorial we will select one of the options manually using PHP, and for the second part of the tutorial I will be actually using a small database table that I created here with each category that has a corresponding number, an ID. And as you can see, every time I change the ID, so let's say 4, the selected option changes. If I put 1, that should go to comedy, and so on. So this is what you'll be learning in this tutorial. I hope you find it useful. Don't forget to thumbs up, subscribe and comment below if you have any questions. So let's get going. For this tutorial I'm using Apache and MySQL, but if you're only here for the selected array from array, then you don't have to have a database and you can just follow the first part of this tutorial. So let me close this, and I've already created a very simple page which I called selected option dropdown.php, and I've opened this on my local host using XAMPP. The page is split into 2 rows and 2 columns. I've just made the font slightly bigger so you can see what's going on. If you go to Visual Studio Code, you will see that I've done a little bit of CSS just to boost up the font size and to do the rows and columns. But this is not important, so let's focus on the PHP side. So for the selected from array, let's write or PHP in here, and the first thing we want to do is obviously open PHP and close PHP, and let's create an array of some sort of categories. And for this I will use a variable options, and the array will hold movie categories. So let's say comedy, adventure, drama, crime, adults, and last let's say horror. Okay, so we've created an array with the variable name options. The easiest way to display any of them array options is obviously to do an echo with options, and then we select the number corresponds to the order of the array. And so for example this will be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and let's say we want to select adventure, I can just do 1, and if I save this and go back to my page, you will see that we're getting adventure. Let's go back to the editor and remove this, because what we want to do is we actually want to loop through this array and display every single option in here. For this I will be using a for each statement. So to do this we can do for each, and the for each will take options as option, and then I can use option to display each category just like this. So I can do echo option, and because all the options will be stacking next to each other, let's do something like a BR so they stack underneath each other. And if we refresh, you see that we get comedy, adventure, drama, crime, adult and horror. Now we actually want to create an option menu or select menu, and in HTML you would normally do something like this, as you already know. And then inside the select we'll have a few options. So we'll have option 1, option 2 and so on. And obviously options take values of selected and the actual value of the option. So for example, a value could be something like, let's say, comedy, and the option can be named comedy as well. So they're the same, but this is what we have to do to create the select. What I'm going to do is underneath my array I will echo select, and I need another echo after the for each in here, closing the select, and then obviously we need to display each option in here. And to do this, let's remove this now because we won't need it. Let's remove the echo. Let's remove all this, and inside the echo here we will have option value, and the value will be selected with single quotes in this case. It will be option as this, and then obviously we need to display the option in here as well. Okay, so if I save this, go back to the page, you will see that we have a problem on line 40, and this is because I didn't put the semicolon. So let's save and go back, and as you can see we now have all the options in the select box. So comedy, adventure, drama, crime, adult and horror. So let's see how we can actually select one of them. So let's say I want to select adventure. The first thing we need to do is create a new variable called selected, and we need to make sure that the variable is equals the option that we want to select. So in this case I want to select adventure. Now what we have to do is actually we have to check whether one of the options is equals to adventure and then display that option as selected, which should be fairly easy to do. Let's create an if statement. The if statement will have selected is equals, so if selected is equals option, then what I want to do is I want to display the option, but I actually want to make sure that this option is selected, and in HTML you will do something like this: selected is equals selected. For the rest of the options we'll have to do an else statement, and we can just echo option value with the option name and the option. So what's happening here is if selected is equals option, it's gonna echo it with the selected property, and then all the other options will be just as normal without the selected property. So let's save this and go back to the HTML, to the PHP, and as you can see, if I click on this, adventure is now selected, which is exactly what we wanted. Let's now say I want to select adult. If I go back, I can change adventure to adult, save this, go back to the PHP file, and as you can see, adult is now selected. Let's now have a look how we can do the same thing, but the data coming from a database record. So let's start the PHP again, and of course for this part is where we will need to have a database and connect to it. So first things first, let's go back to the browser, and I'm gonna go to localhost base. I want to add a table, and I will name the table categories. And just to simplify things, I will only have 2 columns, and I will press go to create this. So we need to name our columns, and the first one I will just create an ID, and the second one will be called categories. For the ID I want it to be an integer, and I'm not gonna bother with any of the other values, and I just want to make sure that this is your primary key. Let's set it as a primary key, just like a normal database would have. And then because this is the primary key, I want to auto increment, which means every time I create a record, it will go from 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And for the categories, I want to make sure that this is set to something like that takes the string. I think a varchar would be ideal for this, and I will select varchar with 65 of length. The length will be set to 65. Excuse me. So let's save this. And now we need to insert a few records, and I will do this manually. And actually I can insert, I need 6 of them, but let's start with the first 5. So comedy, adventure, drama, crime, adult, and let's press go. And let's have a look whether we've inserted. So we have 5 of them, but I need 1 more. And the last one was horror. And let's just press go and go back to categories. So we have the 6 categories with the IDs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And let's go back to our page now. If we go back to the editor, the first thing we need to do is connect to a database, of course. To save some time, I'm just going to copy and paste my database details, and what we have to do is define database server. In my case it's localhost, database username in my case is root, database password is password, and define database name is the database name that I have created. Now we need to connect to a database, and to do this, what we can do is let's create a variable called link, and a link can be equal to MySQL connect, and that will take the database server, database username, database password, database name. Now we need to check whether we have a connection with the database or if we don't display an error, and to do this we can just do an if statement with the link, which is equals false. So if link is equals false, then we can do die and display something like error could not connect, and we can actually display the MySQL connect error as well, just like this, MySQLi underscore connect underscore error. And if we save this and go back to a page, let's have a look. So everything seems good. If I refresh, we're not getting the error, any errors. But if I was to change the database name to something like 123 and save, let's go back to the page, you can see that we're getting a database warning which says could not connect, unknown database, PHP learning 123. But you probably already know this, so let's focus on what's important for this tutorial. Now that we have a connection to our database, the first thing we need to do is query our categories. To do this, what we can do is do SQL, do a select statement. I can do select everything from categories. So let's select everything from categories, and if we get the result, we want the result to be equals to MySQLi query, which is link, and let's say SQL. So the result will be equals the link and the SQL, and then we need to check how many rows are there in the table. So we can do this with if MySQL num of rows number of rows of the result. If it's bigger than 0, then I've actually got a mistake here. I think this needs to be there like this. Okay, yep, that looks better now. Then what we have to do is do while, and we can say row. So while row is equals MySQL fetch array result. Then what we want to do is display the categories, and for this I'm just going to use row and then the category table name, which is category, and let's save. Okay, so if I refresh, you will see that we're getting comedy, adventure, drama, crime, adult and horror from the database here. Again, just to say, the table is called categories and the table row is called category. Okay, now that we have selected categories and we can fetch the data, we want to make sure we actually don't need the echo anymore. Just it will get in the way. The plan is that we use the same options from here, and of course you can get the options from a database, but it'll be easy to show you with this at the moment. So we have the same options, but we want to make sure that the option that we're getting from the database, the selected option from the database, to be the selected option on our select drop down menu, if that makes sense. Let me explain. So if I select adventure, which has the ID of 2, I want the selected option to be adventure. So how do we do this? The first manual way of doing this would be to select everything from categories, where we obviously need the ID, and where, let's say, where the ID is 2, which means I'm selecting adventure. So if I save this, refresh, see whether we have any errors. No. And basically, because we've already used it, the selected variable, I'm just gonna create another variable. Let's call this variable, I don't know, something like database selected, db selected option, and the db selected option will be equals row of category, and hopefully this will return the ID of 2. Sorry, this will select the ID 2, which is adventure. And now what we have to do is replace the selected here with db selected, save, and if I refresh, you will see that we're getting adventure. So let me select, let's say, number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's say 5. I can do this for the database, select 5, and as you can see, we get adult. And to show you how this works in the browser as well, what we can do is we can actually pass the value through the URL. And let's say if we want to do this, we will probably do something like this. If is set, let's get a value of category, and then we need everything to be inside here. And then if we get, let's get the value of category. So let's say, let's create a variable name just to be to make things a little bit cleaner, I guess. So let's say category name is equals get category, and now we can use this variable name for the ID. Okay. An important thing you might want to do in here is to free some of the memory associated with this result. What you can do is MySQL free result, and result is held in the variable name result. So let me quickly do this. And also, if you get an error, we can do echo. And last but not least, we might want to do an else for this one as well, else. And in here we can do MySQL error, something like, let's say, echo execute SQL, and then we can pull the MySQL error, MySQL. Okay, so if we refresh now, so everything seems to be working well, but as you can see, nothing is actually selected. This is because I obviously need to pass the category value which we're getting. So it will go something like this: question mark category is equals 1. And we have an error on line 74, and I've probably done a spelling mistake. So yes, I've misspelled I, I've missed I. So let's refresh again, and if we select number 1, we have comedy. If we select number 3, we have drama. If we select number 5, we have adult, and if we select number 6, we have horror, and those values correspond to the values in the database. Well, thank you very much for watching this tutorial. If you like to see more tutorials just like this, make sure you subscribe to my channel by clicking the red button below. Like this video to let me know that you want to see more. Comment below if you have any future suggestions or if you have any problems. And that's everything for now. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.